Paramount Pictures cordially invites you to the party to end all parties.
April Fool. You are such a jerk. Is something wrong?
April Fool's Day. Get ready to party till you drop. Rated R.
Starts Thursday, March 27th at a theater near you.
In a world where podcasts reign supreme, two friends dare to ask, do you even movie? Hosted by filmmaker Henrique Couto and movie aficionado David D. Neuer. Spoiler alert.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Do You Even Movie? I'm, of course, your host, Henrique Couto, here with my good buddy and co-host, Double D Davis Denoyer.
Davis, we're back to Davis now.
I just remembered one time, a long time ago, you said that really hurt you.
It didn't necessarily hurt me.
So it stayed with me that it would hurt you.
It didn't necessarily hurt me.
It was important to me.
Nobody's called me that except you and some of our select few in the gaming group that we used to play Friday 13th with.
I thought you said that somebody else had called you Davis and really offended you once.
Probably, but I can't recall. Maybe I blocked it out of my memory.
Or you made it up just to pick on us, but just to be a cry bully. You were like,
possible.
I've been called that my whole life and it hurts.
Now I'm racking my brain if I was called that by somebody else. So I may have just blocked it out, but yeah, that's a new one on me.
I mean, I remembered because it's wise to always memorize your friends' weaknesses.
Traumas, weaknesses, pains.
Weaknesses are very important to memorize. And speaking of weakness,
yes,
we've been away for a few weeks.
We have.
Really, I've been away for a few weeks. So for those who've been with us for quite a while, they know that 2.5 months ago, I lost my dog Chicano.
Yeah.
And I adopted Chicano along with my dog Henwolf. I adopted them about a year apart and they were the same age. They were both about 13 years old. Well, about 2 weeks ago, Henwolf passed away. Mm-hmm. And I had been trying to warn people that she was, she had been ill for a very long time.
Yeah.
Chicano had as well. But Chicano kind of got most of the attention. No, because Chicano had cancer and we needed to raise money to take care of it. And Wolfie had degenerative myelopathy, and there's just all you can do is deal with it.
Yeah.
There's no you can't burn a pile of money in hopes of fighting it off. It's just there's nothing you can do. So Wolfie just kind of quietly dealt with that. And for those who don't know what degenerative myelopathy is, it's basically animal Lou Gehrig's disease. Mm-hmm. You lose the ability to use your back legs, and then it goes further up the spine until eventually it's total paraplegia.
Yeah.
Or quadriplegia. And so Wolfie had been fighting with that for a long time. And she actually it was kind of a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
She had been diagnosed with hey, she has the genetic markers for degenerative myelopathy for a long time.
Yeah.
And in October of 2022, she showed full symptoms of losing her back legs. They became weak.
Yeah.
She would have trouble getting around. She was dragging her paws. And the idea that she made it 20 months or 21 months is incredible.
Incredible. No, absolutely.
And I mean, I try not, my mother has been really picking on me because I downplay my participation, but I exercised her regularly and I massaged her legs every day. And while Chicano was going through chemo and he was sick all the time, I was taking care of her, helping her go to the bathroom for over a year.
I mean, you and I were talking a while back, and you revamped parts of the house to make it easier for her to be accessible through it.
I was constantly changing the house to make her able to get around.
Yeah.
Things like toward the end of her life, I was taping rugs. There were no spots of hardwood or tile in the house because she couldn't get purchase on them.
Yeah.
And also I didn't want her to fall on something with no padding.
Absolutely.
But it's hard to talk about.
I know. It absolutely is. I mean, both dogs were always around us when we were recording, or even with Freddy's, or you've told me many stories about recording Weekly Spooky with them, both at your feet.
Yeah. Well, Wolfie was always at my feet because Wolfie was a just deeply, deeply loyal dog.
Yeah.
I never recorded a podcast unless she was at the vet.
Yeah.
I never recorded a podcast without her.
Yeah.
She was always in this room. Chicano, he could take it or leave it sometimes. Yeah. The funny thing is, the difference was that he was a needy dog.
Mm-hmm.
So he would, if he was going to be in here, he would be like between us, right
between
here.
us, behind us.
He needed to like be freaking touching.
Yeah.
As to where Wolfie would just like be near. All that mattered is that you were an eye shot.
Production manager. She would always make sure that she was around the studio, whether she was plopped in front of our table or even just waiting at the door sometimes.
Unplugging things. She's very good at unplugging things.
Like, one of my favorite stories when you first got her was you and I had gone to the movies, and we came back, and the first thing you noticed was that she had chewed at the door, which
she scratched at the door. Yeah.
But then when we walked in, there was a lamp tipped over. All the stuff was off the table or scattered apart.
The coffee table was nearly completely leveled.
Just had a rampage.
Yeah. Well, and then that's the thing about Wolfie, So I adopted her from a rescue when she was 6 years old. She had been found at a kill shelter and had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And I saw this dog, and she was fat.
Oh, she was big.
She was
big.
When they brought her in, she was 130 pounds.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I got her when she was about 115 and then proceeded to get her down to 60.
Yeah, you did.
And I don't know. I the first time I saw a picture of her, I just remembered thinking like, there's a dog that might need me.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a lot of potential. She's very bright in her face. When I met her, I was shocked at how intelligent she was for a dog. And people do that and say like, oh, my dog. No, but she was creepily smart. Like sometimes she would just look at situations and you could see that she was turning.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating. She was just a very, very sharp dog. So I took her in, and it was my first dog.
Yeah.
As an adult, I had dogs as a kid, but I'd never had a dog of my own. And it was an experience I don't think I could have ever had. Again, I could never have it again.
Yeah.
The first morning she woke up in my house, she just looked at me and she was like, "So what are we doing?" And I was like, "I gotta go to the post office." And she was like, "Okay." And she just followed me to the car, jumped in the back seat.
Yeah.
Stuck her head out the window, and we went to the post office. And I was like, "Oh." And that for about 6 years, every time I went anywhere where I didn't have to get out of the car for long, I had Wolfie and then eventually Chicano as well. They both loved riding in the car.
Yes, they did.
And one of the, not trying to harp on the negatives too much, one of the hardest things in my life was when I realized that they couldn't do that anymore. That they just couldn't sit up back there. Chicano had osteoarthritis and Wolfie with her myelopathy and arthritis. She had both. And so that was really hard. And so about 3 days before she passed, I started to see how frustrated she was and how tired she was.
Yeah.
She could barely get up. to do anything. But she would still, like, if I left the room, she would fight and struggle and get up and then go to where I am.
Yeah.
And then lay down.
Yeah.
And when we lost Chicano, it was because he couldn't stand anymore.
Couldn't stand anymore, yeah.
He literally could not. And I remember when I had to make the decision to put him to sleep, Wolfie she was not in good shape.
No.
And I had warned my closest friends. I had told you too. I had told you, like, I told you, like, just be ready. She might be gone next week.
Be gone, yeah.
And I don't know how, but for about 6 days, I just laid on the couch crying, over Chicano and just wanting to be near her.
Mm-hmm.
And the fucking thing she started getting up again.
Yeah.
And for 2 months, she was mostly fine.
Yeah.
I have no idea how.
I don't either.
And neither does the vet.
Yeah. None of us have any idea.
And in some ways, I like to think, that she just saw I needed her a while longer.
Yeah.
So she just had to,
I fully believe that the way that animals perceive both pain for themselves, but also pain for their owners and friends for that matter, is a way that they are able to determine how much more they can go on sometimes. Because that's not the first example I've had with friends or personal pets of my own, where it's just like, we thought time was coming and whether there was another pet that passed before them or not, but they found a way to keep going and be a part of us for a little bit longer to make it easier with another passing, unfortunately.
Oh, I get that. It's just that I had a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Or she did.
Yeah.
We had a diagnosis.
You did.
She was on all kinds of medicine for other things.
Yeah.
She had, while I was struggling with her not being able to walk very well, she developed a heart murmur. Mm-hmm. She was becoming incontinent, so we had to give her incontinence medicine. She was on incontinence medicine for a long time. Big female dogs tend to have trouble holding their urine.
Yeah.
So I would give her a pill before bed that would help her not leak at night.
Yeah.
And, but so she just kind of fought through it. And I have no idea how, but I remember when she started standing up better and stuff, I was like, I always stayed realistic with the dogs.
Yeah.
So my attitude was not like, oh my God, she's better. My attitude was like, every day is a bonus now.
It's a bonus day, yeah.
Because I really thought she couldn't go on.
Yeah.
But that day that she just looked so tired was when it hit me. I was like, all right, she's living for me now. She's not living for herself. Mm-hmm. And her quality of life is tanking so hard.
Yeah.
And I made a promise to those dogs that they would be safe and they would be well. So, the last act of love is usually the hardest.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I did what I was supposed to do, and I've been a wreck.
Yeah, I mean,
ever since. And I didn't realize when I lost Chicano, I thought that was how I needed to grieve, like that I just needed to lay down.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that for over a year, I haven't known any peace.
Yeah.
Because they needed me all the time, and I'm not mad about it. I did it out of love. That's why I never noticed how tired I was.
You were always there.
But I was just constant, and I never got to sleep through the night because they need to get up to pee.
Yeah.
It was a very hard time. And when Wolfie passed, I realized that I really felt alone.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. It was beyond what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Pain wise.
No, I get that.
And being home hurts.
Yeah.
Doing the show hurts.
Mm-hmm.
I can't lie.
Yeah.
I know, but these fuckers don't know.
Absolutely.
They don't know.
No, I get that.
But it's hard. And I wish I had more time with her, but for 7 years, anything I did, she was a part of it.
She was always there.
And now it's just, I look for her.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, it in relation to what you're going through, it's just like with the breakup, I had 2 cats that I was with for almost 4 years every day that would greet me at the door when I came home, would climb into bed. They were always around. And unfortunately, when me and my ex split, the cats went with them as well. So I've been dealing with a apartment that I'm getting ready for a new roommate, but also I'm alone when I go home. Like, unless I have a friend come over or anything like that, I'm alone when I go home. And that feeling just doesn't get easier when you have memories of that not being the case. And I can only imagine on your side of things.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I appreciate your empathy. It's just, it was just such a long battle.
Absolutely.
And I spent so much time with my pets being sick. And now it's like, I feel like I don't accomplish anything because I used to spend hours a day taking care of them.
Yeah.
So it's been super hard and it's super hard to do this. It is, it is so hard to sit down and just talk as myself.
Yeah.
I can do weekly spooky all day long because I'm reading.
Because you're reading, yeah.
I'm pretending.
Yeah.
But here, I don't want to pretend. That's why I went into this. That's why I talked for goddamn 16 fucking minutes about it.
Yeah.
Is because I've always followed the mantra that if you have something to hide, if you have something that you don't want, that you feel embarrassed about or that you're holding in, that you should just spew it out now.
Yeah.
And get it over with.
Absolutely.
Dave, for everybody who wonders, Dave had openly said, dude, nobody cares about your feelings. Nobody gives a shit that you're sad.
Yeah, that sounds exactly like me.
Bro, just shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up.
And just fucking do the show. No, Dave's been wonderful. And Dave's been the guy who's been like, dude, let's just not do one this week.
Yeah.
And then let's not do this other week because he knew that it's a rough time.
Well, and also we should mention that this episode, we're talking about April Fool's Day today, which by the way was the episode.
What's that?
We'll get to that. But anyway, this episode was supposed to be close to April Fool's Day. It was supposed to go on April 2nd.
It's still April.
But I digress. It was supposed to be on the 2nd because it was going to be like, hey, let's do this. That would be awesome. Well, then we all got faked out by weathermen and weather women and weather people.
We as you.
We as me, but yes. There was going to be a colossal storm that was going to require us to build an ark, and there was going to be,
then it barely rained.
Size of hail, minivan-sized hail, apparently.
Minivan-sized hail.
The earth was going to crack open, and we were going to have a Cthulhu pop out. I mean,
the Titans would reclaim the planet.
And then we just got a little bit of wind and rain. But in my hindsight of things, I was just like, you know what? It'd be safer for me to not travel over here tonight to do the show, but also that had just happened. We had Wasteland coming up. So
I'm pretty sure the storm thing happened before Wolfie passed.
Was it? Okay. I can't remember.
April
2nd was April 1st would have been the storm.
Yeah, that happened before Wolfie passed.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Yeah. No, it's all right. It happened on a Thursday.
But yeah, you also had alerted me ahead of time that the time was
no,
coming.
The last episode we did, I was very agitated and exhausted. Because I knew that's the hardest thing, like I talk to friends and I've had lots of people be sweet and reach out and talk. And they all said before I dealt with this, they all said the same things. They were like, you'll know when it's time. And you really fucking do.
You absolutely do.
So, but that being said, call me and complain when you kill your cats personally.
Oh my God.
Okay?
I mean, I've done one already, but that was a while ago.
Not with your bare hands.
Not with my bare hands, no.
I can't
recall that.
I had to get a vet that specialized in horses for Henwolf because she's so big.
Doesn't surprise me.
But to wrap it up,
yeah,
Wolfie was just an extremely special dog.
She was,
and a really good friend to me. And I just missed the shit out of her. And she was just, there was so much to her.
Yes.
She was loving, but not gentle.
Mm-hmm.
She did not have a sweetness. I mean, she had a sweetness, but like, if you were, needed her help, her help was like to hit you in the ass.
Yep.
Like, get moving,
Would headbutt you right in the balls sometimes.
Yeah, no, I mean, she was something. She was this big boxer pit, fucking chow mix creature.
And we were all her puppies.
Every living creature was her puppy.
Yes.
So, man, I used up way a lot of the show.
It's okay.
So I'm going to try my best, guys. I really appreciate those of you who watch and listen. I'm trying my best. I am usually the loud, jovial, quick-witted person. I cannot lie. I've slept more in the last 2 weeks than I have maybe ever.
Yeah.
But I am so fucking tired.
Yes, you are.
And I'm trying my best. I will say that all being said, I fucking absolutely adore April Fool's Day.
Oh, it's so much fun.
It's one of my favorite kind of comfort food slasher movies. Yeah. So I am excited to talk about that. So fuck it, here it goes.
All right. So we are talking about April Fool's Day, 1986. This film is 1 hour and 29 minutes. The director is Fred Walton on this. Now, do you know anything about Fred Walton, or does that name ring a bell to you by chance?
Well, his family founded Walmart.
That's not correct.
The Walton family.
The Walton family, but that's not that Walton family.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure. Anyway.
Okay.
So Fred Walton went to Denison University. He was a theater major until his senior year when he switched to English. That's where he met Steve Feck. Now, do you know the name Steve Feck by chance?
Wait, so he spoke theater, but then he switched to speaking English?
He switched to speaking English, yes.
Fascinating. No, what was that? What was the last thing?
Steve Feck. Do you know the name Steve Feck?
I mean, when I grew up spending time in New England, you heard about Feck all the time. Feckin'. No, I do not know Steve Feck.
So Steve Feck and Fred Walton are the two gentlemen behind When a Stranger Calls. Walton directed it and Feck wrote it. But where their story starts is they did a short film called The Sitter, which was a crew of 6 people. It was their first break into a short film, and then that was adapted into When a Stranger Calls.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah. So Fred Walton starts his writing and directing career with The Sitter in 1977, does When a Stranger Calls in 79, then does Hadley's Rebellion in 1983, an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents in 1985, which was called An Unlocked Window, which was about a killer.
I want to watch the 80s Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
This one is literally about a nurse that is like fresh off her shift, and apparently like there's a mental patient that's escaped, and he's trying to get in the house, and there's one unlocked window that he hasn't found.
So it's not figuratively about that, it's literally about that.
All right. Yes. So, but he got that job because he saw the original version of that on the original 50s Alfred Hitchcock Presents. And when they had seen, I believe it was either April Fool's Day or When a Stranger Calls, and they called him in for the job. And that was when he was like, oh man, like this has been one of my favorite stories. And they're like, well, it's funny you mentioned that. That's the one we want you to direct.
Oh.
And he was like, I don't know if I can direct that because that episode scared the living hell out of me when I was a kid. And it's so precious to me that I don't know if I can create off that.
Sounds like a wuss.
Well, he did it anyway. So in 85, he does that. The Rosary Murders in 1987. He does directs Trap in 89, Homewrecker 92, When a Stranger Calls Back in 1993, which he also
When
wrote
a Stranger Calls Back.
I think that movie's pretty underrated. I mean, for a sequel to a movie that more people remember the first 20 minutes of the movie than the whole movie itself.
Oh, sure.
When a Stranger Calls Back is really, really good. Then he does Dead Air with Gregory Hines in 94.
I've never seen that one.
He's also credited as a writer on 2006 When a Stranger Calls, the remake.
Well, credited with characters,
yeah. And then he's the director of April Fool's Day in 1986, does an episode of Miami Vice in 86 as well, and he also did the TV remake of I Saw What You Did and I Know Who You Are, the William Castle story in 88.
Oh, really?
There's a remake of that. I haven't seen it. I've seen the original. But Fred Walton is, when it comes to The Sitter and When a Stranger Calls, that's a pretty pivotal moment in horror history.
I would say sure.
Yeah.
I think it's funny looking at this film.
Yeah.
Because what April Fool's Day is, in many ways, is just what Paramount wished Friday the 13th had been.
Yep.
Which is higher scale, higher brow, higher class.
Yep.
But crazy box office,
Office.
just like Friday the 13th. And for those who don't know, Paramount Pictures, they distributed Friday the 13th Part 1.
Yeah.
And then they went into business producing all of the sequels until after Jason Takes Manhattan. They left after Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Can't imagine why.
Well, here's an idea. We're losing steam, so let's spend the most on this one.
And put most of it on a boat.
On a boat. And then the rest, Vancouver.
Vancouver.
So But my point is, you look at everything about April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
And look at everything about Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hilarious because it's like, just like the little TV spot we played at the beginning.
Yeah.
They licensed like known music.
Mm-hmm.
They played up the humor. They even said Paramount cordially invites you. Meanwhile, they would literally be like, my stomach gets sick when our logo plays before Friday the 13th. Let's barely market this. And then it just kept making money.
Yeah.
So, and I believe it or not, did not know that When a Stranger Calls had the same director.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The fact that they went and got him just solidifies my opinion that they were really trying super hard to have an upscale, high class, only like the movie has its moments of being crass or being sexual or being exploitive.
Yeah.
But not really.
Not really. And I mean, and this is the tail end of the slasher boom. This is 86. So I mean, it was kind of done
relatively
already.
tail end.
Yeah. So the fact that you have a movie that, I mean, we'll spoil it. I mean, there's a spoiler alert at the beginning of the show, but we'll spoil it. But the fact that you have a movie that is a slasher, but also technically isn't.
Yeah.
Is pretty impressive for the fact that, like, I mean, that they got the money it did because they also, Walton is credited as saying Paramount did not have any fucking idea how to license this movie or how to market this movie.
Yeah. Well, but it was their fucking movie.
Yeah.
And that's the funny thing is, so they throw more money at this than I think they threw at just about any Friday the 13th movie, or maybe the last one.
Yeah.
They throw tons of money at it. It's at the tail end of this movement. And I really think that their thought was, if we make it better, people will love it. And I'm not saying that people don't love April Fool's Day, but I think, and I'll be proven correct or wrong as we dive in, that it is one that definitely became more beloved later.
Later on, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So our writer on this is Danilo Bach. He does Beverly Hills Cop as a writer in 1984, April Fool's Day in 1986, does Beverly Hills Cop 2 with characters, of course, and 87. Then he does Someone to Watch Over Me, which he's uncredited on, which is an early Ridley Scott film with Tom Berenger and the one-armed man from The Fugitive. It's like a sexy thriller, basically.
I mean, if it's got the one-armed man.
Yeah, exactly. Does Beverly Hills Cop 3 in 94, Escape Clause 96, 14 Hours in 2005, and then he's also credited on the remake of April Fool's Day in 2008. Direct to video. Scout Taylor Compton is one of the stars in it. That was like one of the majors.
I must have seen it.
I bought it. Like, I remember getting it, and I remember it being okay, but I remember the ending being a real big twist from the original, which I can't remember exactly.
Did it turn out the house was made of wax?
The house was made of wax the entire time, yes. Moving on.
Hold on.
Okay.
I just want to throw it out there.
Yes.
When I throw shade at the House of Wax
from
remake
2005.
From 2005, it is not because it wasn't good. It is not because I am being a gatekeepery dick. It's because it's so good until that part.
Yeah, which is like the first 20 minutes.
It's so good. And that part's so stupid.
It is wax. Literally.
Literally wax. That's the only part where I was like, they were doing such a good job.
Yeah.
They were doing great, but why would the whole house be made of wax?
But I think, getting off topic here of April Fool's Day with House of Wax.
How are we getting off topic?
Oh,
We're talking about a different movie from 3 decades
Crazy,
later.
right? But getting off topic of House of Wax is the fact that House of Wax 2005 is not a remake of 1953's House of Wax of Vincent Price. It's more a remake of Tourist Trap.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, it has a lot more in common with Tourist Trap.
Coming soon to the show, I'm sure.
Yeah. Say hello to my friend.
So moving on down the list, we have our cinematographer, who's Charles Minsky. Charles Minsky starts as assistant camera on Chain Gang Woman in 1971.
So you think somebody walked on the set and was like, is this film DP by Charles Minsk? And they were like, it's Minsky.
Minsky.
But sorry, I just couldn't resist.
The Thing with Two Heads in 72. The Choir Boys
I love
in
The Thing with Two
77. Yeah, The Thing with Two Heads is good. Choir Boys, not so much. I actually watched that recently. It's a Robert Aldrich film about cops in the 70s. And Aldrich did not have a good opinion of the police at that time.
Thank God they've really turned around their image in the public.
Urban Cowboy in 1980, 9 to 5 in 1980. The Black Stallion Returns 83, and then he becomes a cinematographer in 1984 with Radioactive Dreams. April Fool's Day in 1986. Cinematographer on Amazing Stories in 86. Pretty Woman in 1990.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a hell of a jump.
Dutch, 1991.
He shot Dutch?
He shot Dutch.
That is so cool. I love that.
Then The Gun in Betty Lou's Handbag in 1992. Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, 93. Kazam in 1996.
But not Shazam, the one that doesn't
Shazam.
exist.
No. Tomcats, 2001. Raising Hell in 2004. The Producers remake in 05. You, Me, and Dupree. Oh, wow, in 06.
Wow.
Valentine's Day 2010, New Year's Eve 2011, Mother's Day 2016, and then the Adventures in Babysitting remake in 2016 as well. But during that time, in 1985, he did assistant camera on Teen Wolf, assistant camera on Bull Durham in 1988, assistant camera on Terminal Velocity in 94, second unit on Congo in 95, and second unit on Almost Famous in 2000.
Jeez, yeah,
Dude works.
dude has been out there.
Yeah. So the IMDb synopsis for April Fool's Day says, 9 college students staying at a friend's remote island mansion begin to fall victim to an unseen murder over April Fool's Day weekend, but nothing is as it seems.
That's a pretty solid one, actually.
My synopsis.
That doesn't miss much.
No,
of
it
anything.
doesn't. My synopsis, when a group of college students vacation to a remote island on April Fool's Day weekend, their fun is cut short by an unknown assailant who infiltrates the mansion with deadly ideas of fun.
I like theirs a lot more. I'm just.
That's fine.
Usually yours are at least mostly better, but that one, no, but that's more a statement about their synopsis being really good.
That is fair.
I mean, yours was all right, but it was just like, I think you were trying to build on a perfect synopsis already.
Sometimes I will literally go to Letterboxd, IMDb, Wikipedia, and I'll look at the back. If I have the movie, I'll look at the back, and I'll try to compile it from those ones. And it gets really difficult sometimes because after a while they all just start matching up.
Yeah, I found that whenever I attempt to use Dave GPT, it usually just spits out a bunch of useless shit.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so I just generally keep it to just like, asking questions on how to commit acts of terrorism and stuff like that.
So at the time of this recording, April Fool's Day is currently streaming on a couple platforms. I will also recommend that if you are a fan of this movie or are a fan of physical media, the Blu-ray that Shout Factory put out, 3 years ago, I think.
Which you don't have.
I do not, actually. I had to borrow yours.
Yeah.
But it's a really good Blu-ray. The print is amazing on it, and also the special features. There's an interview with Walton. There's an interview with Deborah I want to say Foreman, but I don't think it's her. I can't remember it's her. But there's like 3 or 4 interviews, one with like the cinematographer, one with an actor. Really good stuff on it. So cannot recommend that enough. What was your first time seeing this?
So I'm going to tell you straight up, don't remember.
You don't remember?
But
okay.
I mean, it was on the VHS shelves, and you being a younger millennial, you don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember because I had a Hollywood video.
Oh, yeah.
I've told you about that Hollywood video, right?
Yes, you have.
I had a Hollywood video that used to be a movie gallery.
Yeah.
And the back catalog of tapes was
horror
insane.
Films especially.
It's where I found Madman. Mm-hmm. It's where I found the double tape of Dawn of the Dead.
Yes.
And remember, like when I say I'm older than Dave, I'm what, 6 years older than
6
you?
years, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm talking 2002, 2003, I'm finding these tapes. That's actually pretty unusual. They were moving them out and bringing in DVD, but the store was pretty big. So they just be like, like we got all these, you know, things. So I would go to Blockbuster because they were in the same shopping plaza. I would go to Blockbuster for like the most newest release.
Yeah.
Or, because I'd be like, holy crap, they have, the new Texas Chainsaw 2 DVD. Wow, because it never looked so good. But then when I would go to Hollywood Video, it was to be like, what is Evil Ed?
Yeah.
That's where I first saw Evil Ed.
Yeah.
Now, that all being said, I bet you I saw April Fool's Day for the first time at that Hollywood.
I could believe that.
But I'd rather tell you about the last time I watched it besides today.
I remember this story. Go ahead.
You do?
Yeah. You were amped, dude. Like, you were just like, this is such a good movie.
Oh, yeah, you do remember. It was in the midst of lockdown.
Yes.
I think it was... actually, I think it was in the midst. I think it was when, like, we were, like, afraid to even hang out because we all just didn't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
And I had ordered it on a lark. I was like, I always remembered liking that.
Yeah.
So I put it on the projector, lit up a cigar, made a bag of popcorn, and I was about halfway through it. I was texting you, and I was like, man, I fucking love April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
It's and I'm so happy that people are adopting the word cozy so much for stuff like this.
Yeah.
My good buddy Cameron Chaney, he loves to use the phrase cozy horror.
Yeah.
And he's a booktuber. He talks about books and young adult books, Goosebumps books, stuff like that. And he always says, like, he's like, this book is scary. This book was silly. This book was cozy. And I'm starting to really get what that means, because cozy is like a combo of fun, familiar, and nostalgic.
Yeah.
When you have all those things in a movie or a book, I think you end up with cozy.
Yeah.
And that really helps. So it's not just the movie. The Blu-ray, they did such a good job of remastering it and bringing back the look of that era.
Yeah.
Which was like sharp and good and clear, but kind of muted. Like, it doesn't pop, it doesn't snap, but it's clearly of a high quality.
Yeah.
Another element that I feel like Paramount was, they were like, oh, well, we meanwhile, they're like, what? We're doing Friday 5? Just get that porn director. No offense to Danny Steinman. He's amazing.
Director of Savage Streets.
But like, they're like, whoever.
Yeah.
But then when they're doing one with their own big money, they're like, let's get the guy who did When a Stranger Calls.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, I think what works most for April Fool's Day, and this is what I found my first time watching it, I found out of this movie through the Going to Pieces, The Rise and Fall of Slasher Film, the documentary I've talked about.
Really?
Yeah, that was okay. Because that was, I know I've said this before, but that was a critical point of me getting into horror, but specifically how much I loved the slasher genre. And that documentary highlights everything from House on Sorority Row to April Fool's Day to Bay of Blood, the Baba movie. Like, it goes through everything from the rise and fall of slasher films. And April Fool's Day was like right towards like the middle or so when they were highlighting holiday horror, like My Bloody Valentine and all those. And I remember that they gave away the ending, of course, when they were talking about it.
Yeah, it's hard to keep that one under wraps.
Yeah, and even with the ending given away, I was just like, shit, I have to see this movie.
Well, and to speak of cozy again.
Yeah.
The other thing that this film really has going for it is a lot of its story beats and the way it ends, especially, are very like the young adult horror books,
absolutely,
especially of the 90s, which is my sweet spot. Christopher Pike books, Diane Hope books. I can't tell you. I mean, there were literally whole Chris Pike books about April Fools, where it turned out it was all a prank.
Yeah,
and there were multiple Stein books, R.L. Stein books, where it's all a prank.
Yeah.
It happens a lot in young adult books because that was how you got away with it.
Yeah, which totally makes sense.
Yeah, like I can't tell you, one of my favorite tropes of the young adult books of R.L. Stein is everybody who's dead turns out to not be dead, except in the beach house where for some friggin' reason that chick was just dead.
All right, then.
I love that book.
I gotta read
But I
Beach
remember
House.
when I was reading it, I was like, oh shit, she's dead. And I was like, well, they always do the thing where then they're at the hospital and they're in the bed. And then I was like, the end. And I was like, so she's just, okay.
She's just dead.
Beach House, really good.
I have to check that one out.
Beach House and Beach Party. R.L. Stein must have written them like in the same coke bender.
Ooh.
Not that he ever did cocaine as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
But I would not blame him with the output he had if he did. But, but they were both very similar settings. But Beach House, and I think it's not a big spoiler, it's been over 20 years, has time travel in it.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
Okay.
But my point is, that's the other reason I find this movie so cozy, is it's like, hey, we're going to give you that look of 1980s well done movie, and we're going to give you like the cast that's recognizable enough.
Yeah.
And we're going to give you all of that, and a ridiculous twist, some silly gore payoffs that are pretty fun, and in the end, no one got hurt.
No one got hurt. I think what I loved about it most the first time watching it was it hits every single slasher beat and trope that you expect, but it doesn't do it to a level that's just like, Yeah. So it's just like it has that originality to it with a story that like you've seen. I mean, people
it's
base
the most original, unoriginal movie ever.
People base this on, and then there were none. Agatha Christie's, and then there were none. How it relates to it so much, and they're absolutely right. So that's what I liked about it. Was
Look
just
at
the
Dave
mystery.
trying not to say 10 Little Indians.
In the other title too.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Fair enough.
But no. I mean, it's such a convolutedly cliche.
Yeah.
Teenagers go to a place where there's no phone.
Yeah.
No, they're literally on an island.
On an island. The isolation.
One boat. Twice a day, but not on the weekend.
Yeah.
And they're arriving Friday on the last boat over.
Yep.
So it's incredibly cliche.
Oh, absolutely.
Even by 86 standards, it was getting pretty cliche.
Yeah.
But some of these late era slasher movies they tap into something fun. Some of them are a slog.
Yeah.
But some of them tap
We've
into
seen
something
plenty.
really fun. What did you say?
So we've seen plenty of the
Well,
slogs.
sure. But like another example of one that's like fun, but it's like aware of how much it's rehashing is Return to Horror High.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love Return to Horror High.
Yeah.
But that movie is so late in that grind.
Yeah, well, it's like Student Bodies is the same way. Student Bodies, I mean, just beat for beat, just is dragging slasher films through the mud, but you have fun doing it even with the stuff that they go into.
Yeah, well, and Return to Horror High would like you to laugh, but it also tried to maintain the horror element, which I thought was impressive.
Pretty gory. Like, Student Bodies isn't really that graphic. Return to Horror High is bloody.
It's super bloody.
It's super bloody.
And I love they're interviewing the writer, and they're like, we found blood and whatever. He's like, when you make Westerns, everything's covered in sand. Everything I owned in the world was covered in blood by the 7th day I was on the set. I love that shit.
So good. So rounding us out is our cast. We have Deborah Foreman, who plays Muffy. She was in I'm Dancing as Fast as I Can in 1982, In the Custody of Strangers 82, TJ Hooker 82, appears in Family Ties in 83, appears in Valley Girl in 1983, Grizzly 2, The Revenge in 1983.
Everyone was in Grizzly 2.
This is true. Real Genius 1985, My Chauffeur 1986, 315, The Moment of Truth. So this is one I've been wanting to show you, or actually I want to show us because I haven't seen it. MVD put it out recently, and it's about a school shooting, basically.
It's one I want to show you. Well, show us.
Show us.
It's just a funny way to put it. It's about wow.
Yeah, from the 80s, and I can't remember. There's a big name in it, but it was lost for a while, and MVD recently just put it out like a year ago, I want to say. So it's one we'll have to track down. So then she does April Fool's Day in 1986, Destroyer in 88.
Wasn't that what I was just talking about?
The prison movie with the one guy's in it from here too. Oh my god, I can't think of his name. The guy that plays Chaz. He's in Destroyer. The one with the killer in the prison, and Anthony Perkins is the director.
Yes. That's a fun one.
That's a really fun one.
That's another lost one.
Speaking of a fun one, 88, she does Waxwork. Yeah, which I just showed Courtney Waxwork, and that movie still holds up.
Well, Waxwork's amazing.
It's so good.
I just wish you could have learned about it how I did by joining it in progress on cable.
That would do it.
That's a way to really experience Waxwork.
The Experts in 1989, Sundown, The Vampire in Retreat in 89.
I like that. Well, I think that's underrated.
Very underrated. Friends, Lovers, and Lunatics in 1989, which leads into Lunatics, A Love Story in 1991.
Holy crap.
Yeah. You're having a mental meltdown.
You're having a mental meltdown.
Then she does the remake of Valley Girl in 2020, which I had no idea there was a remake.
I didn't know either.
And Demons Within in 2023, so she is still acting somewhat today. Moving on down the list, we have Griffin O'Neal, who plays Skip. He was in the Nickelodeon film, Nickelodeon in 1976, The Escape Artist in 1982, Hadley's Rebellion in 1983, which of course was one of the Fred Walton's early films. So that's how he met him and then brought him on to April Fool's Day. The Children of Times Square in 86, April Fool's Day 86, The Wraith in 1986.
That fucking movie.
Assault of the Killer Bimbos in 88, Jesse Hawks in 1989, Night Children 89, Return to Justice 1990, Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies Go to College in 1990, and Soulmates in 92. Griffin O'Neal's career was kind of cut short because he committed murder and got caught.
Well, I mean, it would take getting caught.
It would take getting caught. Wrapping us up is Tom Wilson, who plays Arch. He was in Knight Rider in 1984, The Facts of Life in 84. Then in 85, he does a little film called Back to the Future.
Anything I've heard of?
Maybe. He plays a guy named Biff.
That's not a real name.
Then he does April Fool's Day in 86, Action Jackson in 88. That doesn't rhyme.
It does not rhyme.
Back to the Future Part 2, 89. Back to the Future Part 3, 90. Blood In, Blood Out, Bound by Honor in 93. Camp Nowhere, 94. Gargoyles TV show, 95. Andersonville, 96. Sabrina the Teenage Witch in 96. That Darn Cat remake, 97. Duckman in 97.
Yeah.
Freaks and Geeks in 99. Nash Bridges, 2001.
He's so good in Freaks and Geeks.
Yes, he is. SpongeBob SquarePants, he does many voices of that show in 2001. Stripperella in 2003.
I don't even remember Stripperella.
A SpongeBob SquarePants movie in 04, Reba in 05, George Lopez Show in 05, Still Standing in 2006, House 2007, Bones 08, Family Guy, Adventure Time, Workaholics, NCIS in 2020, and I mean, he's still doing many voices on. He does a lot of voice work nowadays.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things is search Tom Wilson question song.
Yes.
Where he answers all the questions he gets asked all the time in song form.
So good.
What is Michael J. Fox like? He's nice.
What's Crispin Glover like? I don't know. Never talked to him.
Never talked to him.
What's a busboy do? Set up lights.
Yeah. What's Christopher Lloyd like? Kind of quiet.
Kind of quiet. So good.
It's really, really good. Who's the nicest person you've ever met? Adam Sandler. What was the worst one? I can't remember that.
I can't remember who. He's changed up. Like there's 3 different versions you can find of it. It's so good though. Yeah. Question song by Tom Wilson. Highly, highly recommend. So you ready to get into this?
Sure. I mean, we're already 45 minutes in.
Yeah, we're already 45 minutes in. And before we get into this, I would like to thank my friend Brittany Chapman, who recommended this one for us for April Fool's Day. Brittany is the person I can credit to showing me the Black Christmas remake, because I had not seen it, and I was doing, when in high school in broadcast journalism class, I did these things every Christmas that were holiday clips, and they had to guess them, and then whoever won the most of them got a donut party at the end of the...
A donut party?
I bought donuts and milk for people. What do you want?
Okay, it's not the same thing as a blanket party,
No,
right?
not the same as a blanket party.
Okay, good.
But Brittany literally brought me Black Xmas and was like, you need to see this, because I hadn't even seen the original at this point. So I'd known about it.
How old were you?
I was easily like 16.
And you had never seen Black Christmas?
I hadn't seen the original. My uncle had not given it to me yet. I know. I'm ashamed. But
yeah, me too.
But yeah, I remember she specifically wanted to show me the cookie scene. So we're in the back of the broadcast journalism studios. I'm cutting clips, and she's like, "You got to see this scene real quick." And I was like, "This is so fucked up, but I love it."
Black Xmas has aged like a fine wine.
Oh, it's so good. So, Brittany, this one's for you. So we open with video camera footage by Chaz as we meet everybody who's going to be going to the island. We meet Mary, Kit, Skip, Arch, and they all are given like little interviews, and they all mention that they all fuck on the first date, by the way, too.
Oh, well, I mean, it's important to get across what you can.
It is important.
And that camcorder.
Camcorder, indeed.
It's from the era when the camera was small-ish.
Yeah.
But then you had a cord that ran to a full-size VCR, basically, with a battery pack. Which is funny because everything that's old is new again.
Yeah.
So now, DJI, one of the biggest camera companies now, the gimbal company, they have a camera where the newest thing they've released is a thing where you can hold a tiny camera, but then the cord goes to something else, to the body further away. And I was like, man, that was literally what camcorders were in the 80s. That's so funny.
So then we, this is during our credit sequence. So the opening credits, we see Muffy in the basement as she's getting ready for her friends to arrive. And Muffy is at a mansion on this island, as we mentioned, and she's hosting all her friends this weekend. It's going to be a little party. She's down in the basement and she finds this old Jack in the Box. And that's when we cut back to a flashback of her birthday party where she was gifted this Jack in the Box.
How nice.
Opens it, and a fucking monster pops out.
Yeah, it gets me every single time.
And it's a scary monster.
Yes, no, it is like a mutant creature pops out of the box. It's so nice.
It's something that Rob Bodine would have made.
Rob Bodine?
That's what I'm thinking of, right? From who did The Thing? I can't remember. Bodine is the name that's coming to mind. I can't remember.
Botine.
Botine. Why'd I say Bodine?
I don't
Rob
know.
Botine. Anyway. So we see the gang waiting for the ferry that's going to take him to the St. John's house, and that's when we meet Nan, who arrives just in time for the ferry. We also meet Harvey, who is friends with Muffy, and he's also going out to the house for the weekend. And Chaz keeps joking with everybody about their fly being open. He's going around and he says, "Hey, your fly's open."
Yeah, and they also often do the tradition, which is that you're supposed to, after you say April Fools, you're supposed to kiss somebody on the cheek.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's like telling people their flies are open, and then when they look down, he leans in just mwah.
And then he actually catches Rob with his fly down, and Rob doesn't believe him.
No, yeah, actually your fly is down, and he's like, ah ha ha, and everyone just looks at his fly just wide open.
So Chaz tries to talk to Nan, and she's not showing much interest. She's reading Paradise Lost, and she's like, well, what are you reading? And he holds up this porno mag that's like a history of porn through the ages.
Yeah, with a big sticker over a vagina.
Cover. Yes. So that's when Nan's not showing much interest. So we cut back to Skip and Arch, and they're playing a game with the Switchblade, and Arch keeps losing it. He's getting pissed. Skip tells him, let's do one more game, and so he tosses the Switchblade to him. Arch angrily throws it back at Skip, and it lodges into Skip's chest.
Yeah.
Sticks him real good. It
reminds me of that viral video where the guy throws scissors at somebody, and it just goes into his arm.
Yes.
Except that was real, and I don't want to think about it anymore.
Yeah, so it sticks into Skip, and he goes, "Oh, fuck," and falls into the water, like blood comes out his mouth. Somebody dives in after him. Buck, one of the guys on the ferry, dives in after him, and that's when he comes up holding a prop showing that it was all fake. But they're getting close to arriving on the island, so Buck is in the water, and he's like, toss me the rope, I'll tie it off for us. And unfortunately, he keeps missing the tie off for it, and then the boat ends up backing into him. He sinks into the water and comes up, and his eye is all bloody.
His head's basically been mashed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so half his face is all muddled.
Yeah, so everybody's freaking out, and this is the time that Constable Potter arrives. He throws him in his boat, takes him off, and they're taking Buck to the hospital. And that's when Muffy arrives, and she's talking to the constable, and he tells everybody that he wants them to stay with Muffy, but just be wary about being around Muffy. That's one odd detail in the beginning.
Be wary about I mean, that's what people said when I became your friend.
I mean, that's fair.
They didn't say be wary. They were just like, he's just a shitty guy. In fact, this is not alike at all. I apologize.
Yeah, fair. So he wants everyone to stay at the house, but, be weary around her. And Muffy drives the group to the mansion, and that's when they walk around admiring the house. We see that it's right on the water. It's huge. There's a huge dining room. There's living room. There's rooms out back, and there's also rooms up top where they can all stay. Like, this place is decked out.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Very impressive. And that's when Arch and Chaz find a full table with table settings and nameplates, and they also find these Barbie dolls that are modeled after them, too. We next see that a dinner of weenie and beans are being prepared by Kit as Muffy chops the veggies, and Nikki gives the group a sex test via a magazine. And this scene was actually created by Walton because when they were downtime on the set, the kids were actually doing this.
And it's a sex quiz.
Sex test, sex quiz, my
apologies. Sex test sounds a little curious. Well,
sounds like a title for like a direct video skin flick.
Sex test.
Sex test.
That's like that would have been like right when Jacques Mundro was like, I'm not trying anymore. I just want some money.
Sex test.
Sex test. But no, I having grown up with a much older sister.
Yeah.
Those Cosmo tests were constant. And anytime my sister was bored when I was like 8 or 9, she would just make me answer those.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, no, they weren't. You got to understand though, like they weren't all just like
the one in the movie.
It would just be stuff like what do you like in a woman?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, she would always just be like, you're stupid and probably gay.
Jesus. I'm not surprised, but damn.
Thanks.
No,
Dave?
I'm not surprised about that. I'm more so.
Wow.
I'm not surprised about your sister saying that. Not that that's the actual results you got. I am trying to defend that statement.
That I'm gay?
No. Oh God.
I apologize to everyone listening for David, for what he's said, for how he's hurt the people listening.
So out in the yard, Chaz films Arch mock as he's doing like a mock lifestyles of the rich and like talking about how he basically is here to get laid. And that's when we see Harvey wandering around one of the offices inside. I think it's Muffy's dad's office, and he just straight up steals cigars from his desk.
Well, I mean, they ain't using them. It's important to mention. I mean, this is a palatial estate.
Yes,
gigantic, beautiful,
no
old
neighbors.
House.
This is the only house on the island.
Only house on the island, and Muffy. It's mentioned that Muffy is inheriting
it, and also she didn't give a reason as to why she invited everybody out. She just has given that a party.
And there's also the reference to a constant reference to Muffy's family being old money.
Yeah.
And are you familiar with what old money means?
Basically, like inheritance style.
It means that generally speaking, your money is inherited.
Yeah.
Also, there's often that saying that like the way to spot old money is like they have a big beautiful house and then they pull up in their car that was super nice 15 years ago.
15 years ago. That makes sense. So the group sits down to dinner of beanies and weens, and they all soon are pranked in some way as there's whoopee cushions on the chair. Arch sits in his chair, and it throws him back to the floor because the legs like fold and topple him. And that's when they all begin to ask about Buck, and Kit asks if they can change the subject, prompting Arch to ask what everyone's doing after graduation, because that's one thing we did leave out is they're all graduating soon.
Yeah, they're all older high schoolers.
Yeah.
This movie would be weird if they were all 14.
Yeah.
So
Kit speaks up for Rob, stating that he's going to be going to medical school, but Rob tells her that his guidance counselor said that he shouldn't get too excited because while his grades are good, his seriousness is not there for him to basically go into the medical field.
My counselor said that while I shouldn't get my hopes up because while my grades are good, I am very stupid. So,
and of course, this prompts Arch to be like, well, how can anybody else be serious? Anybody could steal a bomb at any time or push a button and nuke us all because this is in the era of the Cold War.
Is it?
Yes.
No, it totally is.
It totally is. Yeah. Don't do that to me. I'm not strong on my history, but
David,
I know some things.
Just a little gaslighting as a treat.
Yeah. Damn it, you got me thinking about that joke. You heard the one about the gaslighter?
What?
Have you heard the one about the gaslighter?
No.
Yeah, you have.
Oh, took me a second. I had heard it before. No.
Oh my God.
No, see, I had heard a version where it was like, have you heard of the gaslighter?
Mhm.
And they say no. You go, yes, you have. You sound crazy right now.
It's terrible. Oh my God. So Kid speaks up for Rob, stating, like I said, he's going to medical school, but Rob says, he doesn't think he's going to because his counselor said things. Arch makes the comment about the Cold War, and that's when Muffy has some drinks brought out, and Nan offers a toast about how glad she is to be here with her friends, and Muffy adds a quote about the forming of friendships and sincereness, but Arch and a couple other people aren't taking it super seriously, and they're acting like they're snoring and nodding off.
The only thing this movie is really missing is when he said he went to medical school.
Yeah.
They could have just been, or that he wants to go to medical school. One of them could have been like, oh yeah, my cousin went to medical school. And then it just flashed back to like a corpse, being like stolen and a prank going horribly wrong. That would be the only way this movie would be even more 80s.
Wasn't there medical school storyline in Evil Laugh? Yeah. I thought so, yeah. Evil Laugh also recommended. Just recently got released on a really, really nice
I
Blu-ray.
loved Evil Laugh.
It was
Remember, I found a signed poster on eBay and everything.
Well,
I
and
loved
also
it.
for one point for the horror fans listening, it's directed by the guy that gets killed in Friday the 13th Part 5 with the axe.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fat kid Joey.
Yeah. I think you're real out of line. No, and do you remember though? We watched the movie and we were kind of like, that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Then we watched the behind the
making
scenes.
of, yeah.
And everybody was so into it
Yeah.
that now I have like a great deal of appreciation for the film.
It's a fun movie.
It is, but like when you realize that it's like, look, we all like all the actors just like put like $700 in each so that they could buy the film because they all wanted to be in a movie. It started to make me go, I'm being a little harsh on this movie where literally they were learning as they went.
This is true.
And it was still really fun.
Still fun, yeah, very fun. So some drinks are brought out, they offer the toast, and that's when they all go to take a sip, but all their glasses have holes in them and start pouring down them. And that's
classic.
when Muffy goes, April Fools. So we're off to the races now.
Yuck.
So Muffy shows Nikki her room, and Nikki tells Muffy that she knows that her and Arch had something in the past, but she wants her to know that Chaz is hers this weekend and that to stay away from him.
Ooh, Kitty's got claws.
We also see that Harvey smokes one of the stolen cigars and has a fake conversation with Muffy, basically like how he's going to swoon her and like how, oh, I didn't know you were into me as much as I'm into you kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, he's like, they even make direct reference at dinner to how like they're all so entitled.
Yeah.
And they all have like the best opportunities and none of them have any clue what they want to do with them.
Nope.
But that guy, what was his name? Harvey. He's not like them.
No, he's not.
He's working class. He's got that southern accent when it takes place in Maine.
Yep.
And to him, he literally is like, well, if Muffy is single and available, I'm a good-looking guy. I have plans for my future. Why not try to hitch our wagons together so that, he literally starts saying like, with my talent and vision and your money. And then he's like, no, I can't say that.
Yeah.
It's like, so I kind of felt for him a little bit though, because like everybody else is just like, woohoo, all we do is party. And he's like, I have a future to worry about.
Well, this is also intercut with Arch going to his room, and then him and Chaz just start jokingly messing around on the bed together and fooling around. Yes. Jokingly.
April fooling around.
There we go. And Harvey,
welcome.
Back in his room, opens his closet door to find an article talking about 6 dead in a crash due to fog.
Yeah. But it just said 6 dead due to fog. Which always made me laugh because I'm like, hey, that picture doesn't show any fog at all. It's just a lousy car accident.
And then to add insult to injury, he opens a drawer and finds more articles about people dying.
With like the most violent, the violent parts circled.
Yes. So that's when he gets disrupted as Chaz walks into his room. He quickly shuts the drawer, and that's when Chaz leaves, and the cigar then explodes in his mouth.
Pop. Yeah. And it's so totally Looney Tunes. You don't see it explode.
Yeah.
It just cuts back and his cigar, well, I'm holding one, a wooden one. It's just
Singed.
all splashed and his face is just painted black. Like it's just perfect.
So Nikki goes to turn her sink on. She's blasted, which is another prank. Arch opens his bathroom sink to find a syringe and a tourniquet in there, like heroin products.
Well, you don't know. Okay, hold on for a second. So there's a tourniquet, there's a needle, and there's a bent spoon.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean heroin.
It couldn't.
Someone could have issues with insulin, have problems with circulation, and just plain like pudding.
This is true. Plain like pudding. You're right. All right. We'll take that. So he pulls the door. He also goes to leave and pulls his doorknob off. Rob and Kit find a painting that's watching them, and they remove it to reveal that a cat clock is behind it.
Yeah. So the eyes are moving behind the painting, and when they take it off, it's one of those old cat clocks where the eyes go back and forth. That's one of my favorites. I love this part where it's just April Fool's gag after April Fool's gag going on and on and on.
Yeah, and that's when we get to probably one of the cruelest ones. When we find out later, we hear a crying baby as Nan enters her room, looking around concerned, and she opens a wardrobe to find a tape being played of a baby crying. And it audibly or visually disturbs her. Like something is off.
Well, I mean, I know you would not be disturbed if you randomly heard a baby crying where there's no baby. Most of us, I feel, would be like, WTF, mate.
But there may be something deeper to this that we'll get to later. Deeper. So Kit and Rob get ready for bed as Rob states that she's like, are you angry with me for telling everybody about medical school? And he's like, no, I'm just angry in general. And that's all we get, basically.
Yeah. I do love how right before she gets in bed, she's down to like a t-shirt and her underwear.
Yeah.
And she's about to take her underwear off, and then she doesn't.
Yeah.
Like she's like, no action's happening tonight. We're going to keep it chill.
So he's angry, and he goes to turn off a lamp, only for the other lamp across the room to turn on.
Such a good gag. I wish I knew how to do it. I mean, now you'd have to do it with smartphones.
So then he goes to turn off that lamp, and then the bedroom light comes on.
The funniest part of that whole scene for me was when we were rewatching it, how I'm just like, just unscrew the bulb.
Yeah.
It's like, that's how I'm just so prepared for annoyance. I'm just like, and this is annoying. I'm like, just do this thing and it's over. So eventually he does unscrew the bulb, but he burns his hand.
That's
why I was like, shut that one off and go unscrew the bulb.
Go the other one,
on.
Because the lamp that goes on has been on for like as long as we've been in the room so far with the scene.
At least a half an hour.
Yeah, so it's going to be hot.
Yeah, jamoke.
So he unscrews the bulb, burns himself, light goes out. Muffy is then seen walking the house.
You did nothing wrong, but just the bum made me laugh. Sorry.
So Muffy's walking the house, and she's pleased with herself because she hears people reacting to the pranks, and she's then startled by Arch as she's going to her room, and she quickly excuses herself and says, well, you know what time it is? Good night. And then goes into the bedroom. So Arch then walks back into his room, and he walks back into the hall, and we hear multiple couples having sex.
Yes.
And that's when he walks back into his room.
Individually,
yes. Walks back into his room, sits on the chair, and gets toppled once again.
So good.
So outside, we see Skip. He finds what I can only assume to be marijuana plant. I didn't see a good shot of it, but he cuts the plant, and he's smelling it, walking across the dock, and then he goes into the boathouse.
I just like that you're such a goddamn degenerate.
What?
That you're just like, well, if somebody found a plant and they liked it, it must be the marijuana.
I'm used to slasher tropes. You have sex, you do drugs, you die.
As the resident criminal here.
Resident criminal,
yes.
Okay.
Does marijuana just grow?
I mean, it in movies, yes.
Correct answer.
So he draws a switchblade as a cat leaps on him, a really good fake out scare. And then he comes up angry. He's like, stupid cat. And then he's grabbed from behind by an unseen person. And then we cut to morning as we see Harvey exercising. Nikki comes out and she's almost topless.
Harvey's exercising with a tension rod.
Yes.
It's so 80s. So in the 80s, think Thigh Master.
Yeah.
It's a rod that you hold on either side that's got a super strong spring. So you bend it and that's the pump you're getting.
Yeah.
And I love those things not only because they were so silly and so 80s, but because in pro wrestling, there were wrestlers who would come out using those to get pump, and then they'd hit each other. Pro wrestlers, they'd hit each other. And I remember the first time I saw somebody use one of those, my mom had one of those when I was a kid. And I remember the first time somebody hit a wrestler with one, I was like, that would fucking kill you.
Yeah.
Like that thing is just solid steel.
That would hurt.
And you'd die.
You die.
Not that professional wrestling is in any way not real.
Yeah. So Nikki comes out and she's nearly topless. And
she's wearing a shirt unbuttoned entirely and just barely covering her breasts.
And she looks over and sees Harvey, who's like, hey.
Hi.
And she quickly goes back inside.
Yeah.
So that's when Rob and Kit go down to the kitchen and they find Muffy, who just looks worn out. And she's acting weird. She's making breakfast.
Yeah, her hair's all messy. She was just cooking.
Yeah.
It looked like the room even had some smoke in it from the cooking.
And she's like, oh, I was just making I'll leave now.
Oh, I was just hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she goes up the steps past Arch, and Arch is like, what's going on? So then the group...
and she goes, I forgot to get dressed.
Yeah. So the group minus Nan are all playing soccer as Nan notices Muffy taking a basket over to the garage area. Kit and Rob find their way over to the boathouse and they start making out, but they're on the dock and under the floor they see a corpse float by that is Skip.
One of the most inspired moments in the film.
So good.
They're getting hot and heavy on this little boathouse, and they're like half an inch spots between the planks.
Yeah.
So you just see the corpse float through, and the optical illusion is when something moves, you see more of it.
Yeah.
So it works phenomenally to where you're like, you are positive you saw a corpse.
Yeah.
And her reaction's great. They run out of there. They run back to their friends. I love that line he says when they run up. It's like, the peaceful, was it the peaceful Quaker couple coming back after a period of nonviolent sex?
Yes.
I don't know why, but that just killed me. Of nonviolent sex.
So they go to the group and they're like, we saw Skip. He wasn't moving. We think he's dead. And everybody's like, oh, well, he's just a prankster. That's what he does. And they're like, well, has anybody seen him since last night? And that's when they're all like, I guess, no, we haven't. So they all go off to look for him. And that's when Muffy returns with the basket. On the dock, Chaz finds Skip's broken switchblade, which is also covered in blood. Arch and Chaz and Rob go off to find him. And that's when we cut to the kitchen where Muffy gets confronted by Nan, asking her about how she knew and why she would put something so cruel in the cupboard, referring to the tape.
Yes.
So that's when Muffy states that she has no idea what she's talking about. So we cut back to in the woods, and Arch, armed with, I think it was a boat oar or just a giant twig. I don't know.
I got the sense it was either a boat oar or it might have been a friggin' like one of those white people games.
Oh, mallet.
Like not like a croquet mallet, but like one of those like
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, not badminton. My God.
Yeah, they're like big and flat.
Yeah,
they look like a
lacrosse.
Lacrosse. It looked kind of like a lacrosse thingy to me.
And that could have been it. So he's wandering the woods, armed with either a boat oar or a lacrosse. I don't even know what the hell it's called. Stick. Looking for Skip as we see a snake by his feet. And twigs keep snapping around him, so someone is walking around him and he's being alerted by it. Arch steps into a trap then that pulls him up and he's hoisted.
And the entire time that he's like circling, there's this snake that he has not seen that's like thinking about biting him because he's so close to it.
So that's when he gets strung up in the trees and the snake is just lunging at him. And then another person kicks the snake out of the way and Arch looks up in horror, and that's when we cut away from him. So we don't know what happened. We see Nan upset and sad, and she's alone outside as the wind starts to pick up. Rob and Chaz return, and they say that there's no sign of Skip, and now Arch is missing now too. So Kit says they need to call the police, and Muffy comes out stating they can call Constable Porter at his home. Rob tries to phone him, but there is no answer. They can't get through to him.
Well, I mean, it'd be pretty easy for the one phone line on the one phone on the whole island to go out.
So Muffy returns with an assortment of tea, and Kit offers to boil some water for it, but then finds that the main pipe is malfunctioning because the water is chunky.
Chunky style.
So Harvey offers to go to the well with Nikki, and Muffy is acting weird once again. Nikki and Harvey arrive at the well, and Nikki accidentally drops a flashlight down into the well as Harvey is lifting up the the cover for it. So she has to go down and get it, but of course she falls into it, and that's when we see several bodies and severed heads just float to the surface.
Which I will say, did not seem like things were well in that well. Hold on.
Enrique is right, and also handsome.
So Harvey goes down trying to save her as Nikki freaks out, of course. Nikki then sits frazzled inside, being comforted by Kit as Muffy brings in a glass, and she's like, don't worry, it's Perrier.
Yeah, she goes, oh God, water. She's like, it's Perrier.
So Rob gets through to Constable Porter, who tells him that he's been at the hospital this entire time visiting Buck. The ferryman has not been around because they were suspecting it could have been the ferryman.
That is not an appropriate term.
Oh my God. The guy that drives the boat. Boatman stays with the boat.
Boatman stays with the fucking boat.
So Constable Porter is like, I've been with them all day. Like they've not left. And he tells them that he's going to be on his way soon. And that when he gets close, he's going to shoot a flare up to let them know. And he wants them all to meet him at the dock.
Sitting on the dock of the bay.
So Rob tells the group they're going to wait as Potter is going to send up the flare, and when he's close, they'll all go out and meet him. The group then goes to work, locking all the windows and doors, and Kit finds a picture of twins in Muffy's father's study as Muffy walks in, catching her. And this is an interesting scene because, she's like, well, what are you doing in Daddy's office? She's like, well, we wanted to turn on all the lights so that Potter could see the house from the water. And she's like, oh, that's a good idea. and then just leaves.
Yeah, it's so. I love how Muffy's character is developing.
So good. So we see Harvey put a gun in his pants. He's up in his room. He takes a gun out of his suitcase, puts it in his pants, and Nikki comments on Muffy acting weird all day, and also she's wearing nursing shoes. That's one thing they point out. The clop whenever Muffy's around. She's like, I know those shoes. Those are shoes that nurses wear. So why does she have
strange
those?
Little hint.
So Harvey tells Muffy about Nan's confrontation. Nikki shows the S&M gear that she found in her room, because that's one thing we forgot to mention is one of the pranks was that there was like an S&M collar and mask in her drawer when she pulled them out. So that's when Chaz says that he found nothing, but Harvey calls him on it as Chaz reminds him of the news articles in his drawer. Muffy then enters the room telling them that she's going to go upstairs, and they're like, hey, shouldn't we stick together? And she's like, it's my house. I'm going to go be where I want to be. And then just walks off.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be in my room.
Yeah.
Because it's my house.
So Rob offers to find a way to the attic so they can keep an eye out for Constable Potter. We then see Nikki packing as Chaz tries to reason with her, but Nikki isn't hearing it until Chaz starts messing around with some of the S&M hoods and he's putting them on. And he's like, I like this one. And she's like, take that one off. He's like, hey, what about this one? And then he laughs and lays on the bed, and Nikki walks out. She comes back into the room, and Chaz is now not laughing. He's basically lifeless, and he's got his hands over his crotch. And she's like, you can take your hands away like you're not getting any tonight. She scolds him a little bit more, and then he just still lays there. So she knocks his hands out of the way, revealing there's a huge bloody mark on his crotch, which I think was supposed to be his dick was removed.
Well, he at least had been stabbed in the ring dang.
Yes, I would say so.
I mean, it really just, it's whatever you want it to be. This is a Rorschach test.
That's exactly.
You're like, it's just like, it's a Rorschach test. You're like, oh, okay, so he removes his hands to reveal my parents fighting, and then...
That's good. So she knocks his hands away and sees the bloody groin, and then suddenly a figure steps out of the closet behind her, grabs her, and that's the end of that scene. In the attic, Kit and Rob arrive, and Rob states that no one's been up here for a while, and also he sees that there's no one out on the water, and Kit's like, well, maybe he's not using his lights. Rob tells Kit about Potter's comments about not being kept alone with Muffy, and Kit then finds dolls in the corner, the Barbie dolls from the dinner, except this time... they're separated because we have, I believe it's Arch, Skip, and Nan that are in a pool, like in the well, basically. And then off to the side, Nikki and Chaz dolls are now painted red and on a bed.
Yeah, no, this is one of those parts where the movie really starts to hit that cozy, creepy horror vibe where it's like, now you're finding dolls. It's becoming clear that this was a plan.
This was a plan.
And honestly, one of the hallmarks, in my opinion, and please feel free to disagree.
Yeah.
One of the hallmarks of the later horror era is how intricate they become.
Yeah.
Because early on, it's just like, Jason was around or something, and now you're dead. But then later on, it became like, it got to the point where you had to have the Scream-esque reveal of why everybody's dying.
Yeah.
Because you would have that moment where it's like, oh, this is all being orchestrated.
Yeah.
It's not happening, it's orchestrated, it's planned.
It's like you were saying, with like the Friday 13th films, like you have those movies where you know who your killer is, you know what's going on, and really there's not anything that has to be put together anymore. Whereas a lot of the 82 to 84 slashers, I would say, were a lot of mystery, trying to figure out things like Happy Birthday to Me, My Bloody Valentine. I mean, yeah, you knew it was Harry Warden and whatnot, but putting that all together and whatnot. So I think the intricacies of it really do go well with building the mystery, which again goes back to people saying, and then there were none. Well,
but it also goes back to the fact that they're in such treaded territory that you want to come up with more.
Yeah.
And also for the, like the writers who are trying to write a elevated horror script.
Yes.
But they're trying to write a horror script that, fulfills them better.
Yeah.
It's more of a story. They're leaning more into murder mysteries. They're leaning, because there were always been those.
Yeah.
So they're leaning more into the idea of like, well, there's a purpose behind every death, and there's a whole thing that comes together, as opposed to just like, he's the boogeyman.
Yeah.
Because it's like, they already did that. He can't just be the boogeyman.
Can't just be the boogeyman. So the flare suddenly goes up, lights up the room as Rob goes to find Harvey. Kit goes to Nikki, or goes to one of the room, tries to go to Nikki and Chaz's room, but it's locked, so she goes to another room. It's dark. She can't really see what's going on, and a door opens, so she goes to the door, but then the doorknob comes off. So then she goes to another door, opens it, is back out in the hallway, and that's when she runs into Rob, and she's like, I can't find anyone, and he's like, I can't either. So they run into Nikki's room, finding the bed completely covered and dripping with blood. So Rob tells her they have to leave, leave, and she's like, well, we got to find Muffy, and he's like, no, this is her house, like she's on her own. So they rush to Muffy's room, and that's when they find Harvey's body strung up and blocking the door, so Harvey is now dead too. So out on the docks, Rob calls to Constable Potter as they arrive, but he finds no one, hears no one, and they find the boat, but there are no keys. That's when Kit finds a letter also from a mental institution stating that Miss St. John was a patient there for 3 years. And Miss St. John refers to Muffy St. John.
Muffy St. John.
So Rob reminds Kit that Muffy said that she keeps boat keys in the kitchen as they make their way back to the house, but Rob also notices that the basement window is open, so they sneak into the basement. Kit quickly points out what appears to be a trail of blood on the floor leading to the furnace, and they open it to find Muffy's charred clothes from the first night.
Yes.
So they also find...
And more.
Yeah, they also find a height chart showing the names Muffy and Buffy's measurements through the years, and it's clearly as they were kids. As Kit puts it together that Muffy's twin sister Buffy is now the one that's here.
I mean... It's painting a picture.
Painting a picture.
And speaking of painted pictures...
Yeah.
Next part.
So that's when Rob's attention is back on the painting with eyes, as it's back in the basement now, and they're like, okay, well, how does it have eyes?
But
so
it
he's
has
like,
stark, like wide open, unmoving eyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, I'm going to raise this, and you go and pull it away. They pull the painting away, and Muffy's decapitated head falls from the top of her body onto the floor. And that's when...
No, the chick catches it.
Yeah. Oh,
remember?
yeah, that's right, yeah. Now she catches it, and that's when we see Buffy is now nailing the windows shut in the basement, locking them in. So now they are trapped in the house, and that's when we see Buffy start nailing the windows. Rob and Kit go back into the kitchen with Buffy right on their trail. She's got a knife. She's trying to get the door open. Rob somehow gets locked into a closet. I missed that part. What happened with that?
He was trying to get into the closet to get the keys.
Okay.
But then once he was in the closet, the door closed
shut.
and locked behind him.
Okay, so Buffy catches up to Kit, and Buffy corners Kit, trying to reason with her, which is funny because we made the joke because Amy Steele is the one that plays Kit, who was, I can't remember her name in Friday Part 2.
Yeah, but she was the final girl.
Final
in part
girl
two.
who gets the sweater.
Jason, mother is talking to you.
It's kind of like we have that scene again. So she tries to reason with Buffy, and Buffy is not having it. So that is when she charges into the room, and that's when we see that Chaz, Nan, Arch, Skip, Harvey, Constable Potter, all alive and acting like they don't see her.
They're all... So the first time I saw this gag, it definitely got to me because she busts into the room. And not only are they all alive and well in there, but they're like out of time.
Out of time.
They're all very quietly doing things, like doing a card stack.
One's reading a book.
Reading a newspaper.
One's knitting.
Yeah, knitting. Just dead silent. Until she finally yells out to them, they all turn to her and start laughing.
Yeah. She goes, ha ha, very funny, guys. And that's when they all break. And that's when Muffy then appears in the door and shows that the knife is fake.
It's a retractable blade.
Retractable blade. So Muffy then thanks everyone for being such good sports. They all erupt in laughter, commenting on Kit and Rob figuring it all out. And Muffy informs them that the next month, she's going to get the house. This has been her plan, but only if she can prove to her father that she can handle the estate. Unveiling this has all been part of a rehearsal for a whodunit weekend getaway that she's going to make the house.
She's going to make the house a country B&B, but not just any country B&B.
Yeah.
Where you can have an unrivaled experience in whodunit murder mystery.
Yeah.
And they were all the guinea pigs without knowing.
Without knowing, and also revealing that Skip is actually her brother this entire time, because they had said that he was the cousin at the beginning of the movie.
Distant cousin.
Yeah, distant cousin. Actually her brother. Buck Williams is a makeup expert, because that's one thing we forgot to point out is that Rob in the closet's freaking out, screaming.
Yeah. So Rob's in the closet freaking out, and then Buck pops up with his face all messed up.
Yeah.
And he goes to punch him, and luckily he moves.
Yeah.
And then
he peels it off and sticks it on his face.
And then one of my favorite reveals, he then reaches up to the top of the door frame where there's just a simple magnetic lock that you could just undo.
And he clicks it, falls
and
out.
That's the trick to how they were making doors lock and people not, being like, why won't the door open?
Good.
It's super smart.
Super good. So that Buck is actually her brother, and that's when Constable Potter is also revealed to be Uncle Frank. And she apologizes for some of the fake clues in the bedroom, but they all did so well, and even mentioned that, Arch is like, I almost crap my pants, and that's when Uncle Frank is like, I was there. There wasn't any, almost.
Yeah, and then my immediate thought was, well, he was upside down. He crapped his shirt.
Well, that's when also Frank is like, those pants will be out of the dryer here in just a little bit.
Relax, they'll be out of the dryer shortly.
So that's when Muffy takes out a huge tray of champagne. They all have an after party with the champagne. We hear Mama Told You Not to Come by Three Dog Night.
When you say a huge tray of champagne, there were like nine bottles.
And they get sprayed all over the room. The guys are having a great time.
They're pouring the drink into the fake severed heads.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Muffy returns to her bedroom, a bit drunk that night, and yanking the noose that held Harvey off. She goes to check behind the door. She shuts it, and then she notices a wrapped package on her bed. She unwraps it, revealing a Jack-in-the-Box from the first part of the film. She finishes her champagne bottle, starts to crank the Jack-in-the-Box, and the tune starts to go slowly, but then she puts the box down, grabs it as it springs open, just a regular clown, but suddenly Nan appears behind her, slicing her throat. But she quickly reveals it to be another gag as she says April Fool's again. And we see the clown is a regular clown in the box, except he winks. And that, my friends, is the end of 1986's April Fool's Day.
And it's a solid ending, albeit it can feel a little disappointing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it all checks out.
Yeah.
I've always liked that ending. I think the little wink at the end is just a fun way to kind of say, hey, the whole movie's for fun.
Yeah.
So I've always liked that with the Jack-in-the-Box and everything. And the fact that when she slits her throat, she holds up the knife and you see the tube with the little bowl.
Yes.
It's good stuff.
No, it's great.
I've always enjoyed this film quite a bit.
So you want to hear some fun trivia on this? And there is some fun in this trivia, actually.
It better be fun.
So budget's $5 million. What do you think the box office was? And I'll tell you what the opening weekend was.
Well, I know it was a success, but it wasn't a runaway.
Correct.
So I'm going to guess... I'm trying to keep it conservative. So like 11 million.
Close. Okay, so the budget's $5 million. The box office took in $13 million.
Oh.
It gets released on March 27th in 1986 and makes $3.4 million opening weekend.
That's a hell of an opening weekend for a little movie like that. But 13 million at the box office. I mean, that sounds great against a $5 million budget, but if it was great, I feel like we could talk about April Fool's Day 5.
That's true.
And we're not.
We're not.
Sadly.
So shot entirely in British Columbia, Canada, with predominantly American actors, the cast actually assembled at a hotel in Vancouver just prior to filming and began hanging out to build a rapport and hone their characters to make it more believable that they were actually friends. Same thing that they did with My Bloody Valentine.
Oh, I thought you were going to be like the same thing that we tried to do before we started this show.
So Deborah Foreman came in early to audition for Muffy, but the director and producers didn't feel that she was right for the role. They were close to signing several other actresses, but they backed out for various reasons. Foreman petitioned for another audition and blew everyone away the second time, landing the role.
Nice.
Linnea Quigley was originally cast as Muffy.
Really?
But she had to turn down the role due to scheduling conflicts with Return of the Living Dead.
That's so wild because she was not a big name yet. She was kind of growing at that time.
There, yeah. So the interior of the well scene was shot in a tank on the LA soundstage at the end of production. The water was dyed to make it look murky, and the crew members had discarded their cigarettes right into the tank. Deborah Goodrich spent so much time submerged in the nasty water that she left the set with an ear infection.
Nice. Jesus.
People think the movie's theme song, Mama Told Me Not to Come, was written by Three Dog Night, but they only performed it in 1971. Randy Newman actually wrote it, but no one heard his version in 66 until Three Dog Night, which was one of the most successful cover bands in history, picked it up in 71.
Oh, wow. Okay. I did not know that.
He had been sitting on that song for like 5 years. So the film originally had a much longer and more twisted ending. In the original script, once Muffy reveals the whole weekend was a setup, the guests leave except for Rob, Kitten, Chaz, and Nikki. They sneak back into the house to prank Muffy for revenge. However, when they return, Skip cracks and attempts to kill Muffy in a jealous rage. Rob jumps in and saves Muffy, killing Skip in the process. The ending was actually filmed but didn't make the final cut as the studio opted for a more upbeat conclusion. The ending is identical to how the book plays out, though.
There's a book.
There's a novelization, yes.
There's a okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So due to the film being light on violence, it received frequent airings on late night television where it gained a large cult following.
Cult following. Got it.
So that is the fun trivia that I have for the film. What are your final thoughts on the film, Enrique?
I mean, I really nailed it at the beginning. It's a fun kind of cozy experience. It's not a terrifying movie.
Yeah.
It's got a couple of good scares. It's got great atmosphere. The island house is super fun and creepy. The characters are super likable. I love watching Tom Wilson's the name, right? Yep. I love watching him try so hard not to be Biff.
Yeah.
He does a really good job, but he's like so clearly trying not to be Biff.
Yeah.
Like he's very soft, even when he's harsh. He's like not being like, whatever, butthead. He's like not doing it. but I've always loved this film. It is, I mean, I can't call it an own it.
Okay.
Unless you are a massive horror movie fan, in which case it is an own it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're just an average movie lover, it's worth a rental.
Yep.
Because you'll have a lot of fun with it. But if you're a horror nerd, then it is an own it for sure. Yeah.
This is a rent it for me as well. April Fool's Day is a very, very fun slasher film, even if it technically isn't one, but you have all the beats and tropes that you expect from it. The isolated mansion setting, the atmosphere of that is so good. And it really makes the film work, keeps the tone so when the reveal happens that you can't help but smile at that twist. Every time that twist comes about, I'm just like, that's so good.
Yeah, I can agree.
We always like to end the show with a couple of recommendations as well. I've got two this week. First one being a horror film from 2016 that I actually showed you called Fear Inc. A horror junkie and his friends sign up with a company that brings their customers' greatest fears to life. This is one that is really good for horror fans. You will either love or hate the twist at the end.
Yeah, definitely.
And the other one, I have to, 1986's Slaughter High. 8 people are invited to their alma mater for their 10-year reunion where a fellow former student disfigured from a prank gone wrong is out to seek revenge. I gotta get Slaughter on the High on the show somehow.
Slaughter on the High?
Slaughter on the High.
Gotta get Slaughter on the High, baby. Slaughter on the High.
Do you have any recommendations?
No. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Happy Birthday to Me, I feel like is almost the same movie in the coziness element.
Yeah.
Great double feature. To have together.
Yeah.
It's another one of those Canadian-made, higher budget slasher movies from the later era of slasher. So that's like my number one would be Happy Birthday to Me. But honorable mention, a movie I feel like I never hear enough about. I like it enough. The Slayer.
Yes.
Which we both watched.
We have.
Together. That's another one because it's got the island setting going for it.
Island setting, supernatural element to it, and genuinely some really unsettling imagery in that movie too.
So those are my suggestions, and that is April Fool's Day.
That is April Fool's Day. Would you like to know what we're talking about next week?
No, I'm good.
Not too bad, because we're going to take a trip back to 1995 for Daniel Stern taking children hiking.
Howard Stern took children hiking?
I said Daniel Stern, not Howard Stern. Oh. In 1995's Bushwhacked.
I love Bushwhacked.
Bushwhacked is a lot of fun.
I have fond memories of a friend and I both going through a horrible breakup at the same time, and her inviting me over to her house. Not like that. Although it's funny, but as I give more detail, it sounds exactly like that's what's going on. Because then it's like, so we watched Bushwhacked, then we watched the movie, then I slept over.
Yeah.
But not like that.
Not like that.
But I just remember she was like, yeah, let's just watch something to get distracted. The first movie we watched was Over the Top.
Oh, yes.
Because we were going through her Netflix, and I was like, oh, we got to watch that. And then as soon as that was over, I was like, is fucking Bushwhacked on here? I was just my mind was
prime
into it.
Netflix days.
When those were the days.
Oh my God. One more thing before we wrap up.
No!
So I did mention we just talked about April Fool's Day, and I did mention Slaughter High. In 1986, there were 3 horror films that came out centralized around April Fool's Day: Slaughter High, April Fool's Day, and then one we're getting ready to watch. We wrap up the show, Killer Party. From 1986.
I already called the police to remove you.
Oh, did you?
From here, yeah.
All right, fair enough. Well, I guess I won't talk about it next week. Never mind. But that is going to do it for April Fool's Day. And once again, I just want to thank everybody. We had several people reach out to us during our break period and just wanted to make sure that we were okay. You know, you obviously have had a lot going on. I've had some stuff going on, and we really do appreciate everybody checking in. But we're also glad to be back behind the mics. This was really fun for me, and I hope it was for you too. You
and your fucking adorable problems.
Hey.
No, and Dave's been going through a heart adjustment phase. But you know what? Your new vagina will be fine.
I can only
It'll
hope
heal,
so.
And then you'll
only hope so.
I don't even know anymore. But before we get out of here, thank you guys seriously for reaching out, being kind, being understanding is very much appreciated. And for supporting us on Patreon.
Yeah.
Supporting us on YouTube, supporting us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you like what we're doing and you want us to keep doing it, you do not have to give us money. We like money.
Yes.
But you do not have to give us money. All we ask is that you take a second, leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube, leave a like. I know it's an annoying thing to be asked that all the time, but it's literally,
it helps
costs you nothing and it helps. If you're listening to the podcast, Apple Podcasts, leave a review. You don't even have to write a review. Just leave 5 stars.
Yeah.
Spotify, leave 5 stars. It helps people find it.
Find us, yes.
And most importantly, if you have a friend who loves movies like you do, tell them to watch.
Absolutely.
Those things make a huge difference, much bigger difference, as much as I appreciate the people.
And
People put in a couple of dollars on Patreon. That really helps.
Yeah, it does. And we should mention, too, that as of this recording, the Freddy's Nightmares book has dropped.
Oh, yeah. You can grab it now on Amazon.com. Just search Welcome to Primetime Freddy's Nightmares Retrospective, or not Retrospective, Companion.
Yeah, Companion.
And you'll find it for $16.95.
Yes.
And we do appreciate you guys grabbing a bunch. I've seen a bunch of photos of people with them.
Been awesome.
It meant a lot to me, and I know it meant a lot to Dave, because that time in our lives doing the Freddy's Nightmares podcast was a very interesting and strange time.
It was indeed.
The fact that I committed to a weekly podcast about Freddy's Nightmares in that point in my professional career was really silly.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of fun with it. We I still sometimes think about, do you remember when we started?
Yeah.
How we were crammed in my office because it was the only sound treated room in the house.
Yep.
I'd plug another mic in, and then I'd just unplug my desk mic and plug it into the mixer. And we'd sit there both cradling you had papers and I had an
papers.
iPad.
We'd sit right across from each other and just do that.
And we would just nebbishly doing our stupid show until I built the studio that was for us to take the show into.
Yes.
So just thank you guys for checking it out. If you want to find out more, go to doyouevenmovie.com. You can email us at doyouevenmoviepod@gmail.com. And that's about all I've got.
You can also find us on Instagram at Do You Even Movie Pod. You can also find us on Facebook as well as X, Do You Even Movie Podcast.
You forgot our TikTok.
Still working on TikTok.
Oh, we're banned for life.
We're banned. My phone number is banned, yes.
Literally all we did was share clips of the show.
I'm gonna possibly see if I can just launch it again and we'll just pick it up where we are. We'll see.
I understand. So Dave didn't grow up on social media quite the way I did.
No.
So when you were like, they banned me, I'm like, I've almost been banned on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I never do anything. I'm not even very controversial.
I was pissed.
Dude, I got a channel strike on a video where we were making fun of an anti-Semite.
Wow.
And when I said, could a human look at this because I'm insulting an anti-Semite, they were like, it's been looked at. It is hate speech. You have a strike for a year.
The only thing that I can think of that got us was our language. That's the only thing I can think
English?
of. Yeah, English.
We don't swear that much either,
Not
fucking
in the clips,
cunt.
no. It may have also been that the words were in the text. In the text,
Twat.
maybe. I don't know.
Twat. I actually didn't. I thought it didn't show swear words.
Maybe it didn't. I haven't watched the clips in a while, but yeah. Either way, when we have a TikTok update, I'll have one for you. I'm just gonna see exactly what I can.
Riveting. Yeah, you guys can't wait. So anyway, until next time, you guys be safe and give your loved ones a little something because they deserve it. And we'll talk at you next time.
See ya.